Hello, this is Sharat Kalari with Tina Clayman from SharePlex Technical Support. In this video, we'll discuss how to perform a preliminary investigation of SharePlex out-of-sync errors. We'll cover some of the causes of out-of-sync, how to troubleshoot and resolve them. SharePlex generates an out-of-sync error on target when insert, update, or delete fails to execute. For example, for inserts, a failed DML would be generated due to a unique constraint violation on target, which means this primary key or unique key already exists on the target. For deletes, a failed DML would be generated if the row does not exist on the target. Post looks for the row based on a primary key, unique key, or combination of the columns. If it cannot find the original row to delete, then an out-of-sync error would occur. Logically, this is not an out of sync, but bigger question is why is the row missing? For updates, post queries the target for a pre-image of the column to be changed. If the pre-image does not match the actual data of the target, an out of sync message would be generated. The original out of sync message appears in the event log, and more information about the out of sync message condition can be found in errorlog.sql file in SPSys Wader log directory. Sync issues are generally broken down into two different categories, user error or SharePlex error. In this video, we'll focus mostly on the user errors. The most common user errors would be triggers firing on the target, foreign key constraint with delete cascade enabled on the source, DBMS jobs running on the target, data not in sync in the first place, users modifying target data directly, data loading on source with direct or non-logging option, duplicate entries in the config file. As a general rule, the triggers that modify replicated tables are set to execute on source, and then the resulting data is replicated to target. As a result, triggers on target should be disabled to avoid a duplicate firing of the trigger. Use the below script to find if you have unnecessary triggers enabled on the target and then disable them. For your convenience, a copy of each sample script is included directly in the solution. Please note that these scripts are just samples and SharePlex does not customize or troubleshoot these scripts. To find the statement level trigger, you can run a query on DBA triggers with the status as enabled and the trigger type set to statement. To find the statement level trigger, you can query the db_triggers view with status as enabled and trigger type set to statement. To find the row level triggers, you can set the status as enabled and the trigger type not like a statement. With both the statements above, you can add the table owner in the where class. Foreign key constraint with delete cascade is enabled on the source database. If on source you have a foreign key constraint enabled with delete rule set to cascade, then Oracle will remove the child prior to the parent record and SharePlex will replicate it in the same order. To find the foreign key that has cascade delete, query the db_constraints view with constraint type set to R and status as enabled with the delete rule set to cascade. For reporting and high availability, foreign key delete cascade should be disabled. For the peer-to-peer, set up a conflict resolution to ignore delete out-of-sync error. There can be jobs running on the target which can modify the target database directly. And the clues to look for would be to look at the timestamp of the out-of-sync condition in errorlog.sql file located in the Wader log directory and compare it with the scheduled jobs that are running. If the timestamp is similar, most likely the problem is the job run on the target as well as the source that ended up with duplicate DML, or the job ran only on the target and directly modifying the data on target can cause out of sync. Use the query to look at the DBMS jobs and also look at the cron tab for a list of scheduled jobs. Make sure job queue processes parameter in init.ora is set to 0 on target, and this prevents the jobs from running. Customer needs to disable the jobs that can modify the data on tables in replication. If you have Oracle apps, make sure Concurrent Manager is not running and doesn't have an update job schedule. Sometimes out of sync can be with the resync procedure that you use. Check the sync procedure to confirm that the database is in sync when the replication started. Once the table goes out of sync, it will stay out of sync until manual steps are taken to resync it. You can run compare or copy to make sure the tables are in sync. Check to see if any of the users are modifying the target data directly. This happens more often than one would think. There are two ways to check the user activity on the target. Activate a reverse config to trap changes on the target. Keep your export queue on the target in stopped state during this process. You can also use the query below to check the user activity. Check to see if the users are performing direct loads on source with no logging option, as this would result on data not being written into the redo logs on source, and as a result it would not be seen by SharePlex. To prevent this issue in future, make sure all your loads are being logged into the redo log and set SPOCT replicate deload to 1. Be careful with this setting as it will slow down your SharePlex replication. Also check the create table DDL script to make sure that logging is turned on for the table. If archiving is not turned on, then deload will not replicate. Check for the duplicate entries in the config file. If you have duplicate rows for the same table, SharePlex will replicate this data twice. Remove the duplicate rows and then reactivate. To summarize, the most common causes for out of sync are triggers firing on the target, foreign key constraints with delete rule enabled on source, DBMS jobs running on the target, data not in sync in the first place, users modifying the target database directly, deload with no archive log or no logging mode, duplicate entries in the config file. Please refer to the solution for a copy of scripts shown in the below video. We hope you enjoyed this brief presentation. Have a wonderful day and check out our other SharePlex videos.